can't get home because you live too far. Your cash and ID was back in the car. Now you wish you had driven your Duster, but it's too late. You've been had by a hustler.
I decided to take a much more difficult fight than Ryan Garcia for less money, but people want to bash me for taking a more difficult fight.
See, Rolly's saying it like he's doing something honorable. Look, I sacrificed an easier payday against an easier opponent. I don't think it was his decision. It was an Al Heyman, Floyd Mayweather, Leonard Ellerby decision. And as simple as Rolly is, he can do the maths. That basically they put their interests ahead of his interests to keep the fight in-house. Similar to what they're doing with Errol Spence and Crawford and Fundora. They're trying to push Errol Spence ahead of Terence Crawford, although the WBO have ordered Terence Crawford to fight Fundora next. We'll talk about that a little later. And I don't think Rolly ever recovered from the politics, the political decision, the Ryan Garcia fight taken out of his hands. I think he was hungry for that. I don't think he really wanted this Pitbull Cruz fight. And it showed yesterday. Jim Lampley said he looked intimidated in there. Yeah, he did look a bit shook. He got caught up in the politics and caught a beating. Let's just say this. Oscar De La Hoya would not have put Ryan in a harder fight for less money. Robert Diaz wouldn't have did it, and Bernard wouldn't have did it. But when you're at the PBC, did you hear him post-fight? He sounded broken. He sounded like a little kid. Happy Easter and, put God in, which is good. Always put God high up in your priorities. Always. But it was just the weakness in his voice. They took all the energy and anything he was about out of him. This fight wasn't lost in the ring yesterday. It was lost a little while back. As simple as Rolly is, he's not dumb. I'm fighting a tougher opponent for less money. They took what for Rolly was a legacy fight away and a huge payday away and a winnable fight away from him and expected him to go into a Cruz fight full of confidence. And then every time he goes on social media, he's looking at this broken kid Ryan falling apart, thinking, why couldn't I get this fight? Like Eason Cruz. It's just all business. Just all business. He's like a little piece of granite. Expressionless look on his face at all times. Yeah, he struggled to get motivated. Struggled. Now, Pitbull, in the same situation as Rolly, he wouldn't have bothered him. He wouldn't have bothered him. Every time Pitbull goes in there, it's kill or be killed. Regardless of the politics beforehand. Kill or be killed. But other fighters need better man management. And Rolly's one of them. Him, Ryan, and there's a lot more other fighters. I would have been tempted to pull out myself if I was in Rolly's position. The amount of times I heard Rolly Romero say that Devin Haney is boring, that Shakur Stevenson is boring, and yeah, Shakur is boring actually, but Devin isn't boring, and Shakur is at least effective. Well, what would Rolly call what he was doing? He was running all around the ring, holding on for dear life, not trying to exchange. He was boring. It's a good thing Eason Cruz wasn't boring, but he was boring, stunk the place out. He got tagged early in the first round, and he was hurt. And then for a lot of the fight, he resorted to, I'm going to call it running. Since he's going to say that certain fighters with certain styles are runners, well, he ran and tried to get lucky with a few scary right hands. He did land some shots, but Cruz, he didn't flinch from no shot Rolly threw. Not one. He didn't flinch at all. The body shots were eating Rolly alive inside there. It was a great display of pressure fighting, actually, which sometimes is a forgotten art while everybody's shoulder rolling. And yeah, Rolly was shoulder rolling, and he actually pulled it off a few times, rolling shots. But how would I describe what I saw? He had no ring command. You see, Tank got a points win over Eason Cruz. And what Tank did well, a lot of people critique that performance. And I always think, why are they critiquing that performance? I always thought that. What Tank did well, he kept Eason turning. The way to do that effectively is to box small circles, not big baggy circles around the ring. And you can stop someone like Pitbull setting to throw them bombs. If you don't keep the likes of Eason turning with that two-handed attack, it's not just a one-handed attack, it's a two-handed attack, body and head, he's likely to eat you alive in there. Because, no fighter is impervious to punishment, but so far, he's looked pretty much impervious to punishment. I mean, Tank can hit, but Pitbull took Tank's power, no problems at all. He took Rolly's power, no problems at all. Rolly was getting warned by the referee for holding. In the 5th, he lost a point for holding. In the 7th, a huge overhand right hurt him, and the bell saved him. Beautiful combinations from Cruz, and like the way he cut the ring down. Well, I've got to give him credit for that. But Rolly is a TMT fighter, but he doesn't have the skills of Floyd. He doesn't have the skills of Tank. He doesn't have them skills. So Pitbull enjoyed himself in there. And he had Rolly out on his feet. And the bell saved Rolly. In the 8th, however, it was business as usual until the tape came loose on Cruz's right glove. The referee stopped the action. And his old man was stumbling around with the tape. And the referee said, "You're giving him time to recover," saying, "Hurry up." And he was telling his dad, "Don't coach him, just tape the wrist up of the glove." And he did that. But as soon as the action resumed, rather than Rolly getting any benefit because of the extra seconds rest he was getting, Cruz landed a huge left hand. Rolly's legs were all over the place. Cruz, surprising hand speed, finished it off. And actually, coming out for the 8th, the ringside doctor, who should have checked Rolly's condition within the minute interval, was actually giving Rolly more time, gave him about 10 seconds checking if he was okay. That looked a little dodgy. The only thing that stopped Rolly from getting knocked out earlier is he probably weighed in, rehydrated a good solid weight. He looked big in there. He did look big. But Cruz, with his unusual neck exercises that we were seeing in the week, is extremely tough. He becomes the 140-pound WBA champion. And under the circumstances that Rolly won the belt last year, I'm guessing a lot of people ain't too sad. What's next for Cruz? Are they keeping this belt warm for Tank Davis? Will Old Face Killer get a shot to get the full title? Old Face took out O'Hara Davis. Ismael Barroso, aka Old Face Killer. He took out O'Hara Davis in a round to win the interim belt, so he could get a shot at it. And he deserves it.
You can't get home because you live too far. Your cash and ID was back in the car. Now you wish you had driven your Duster, but it's too late. You've been had by a hustler.
The ludicrous decision to put an inactive Jamel Charlo coming back from an injured hand. Jamel unproven at 160, unproven at 168 to take on Canelo rather than fight Tsyzu, what could have been a massive blockbuster, especially in Australia, and a winnable fight for Charlo. That had way more of a 50-50 ring to it than the Canelo fight. And then, you know, Tim doesn't get that fight. Then this random opponent is selected, Keith Thurman, at a catch weight. And you're wondering why. What credit would Tsyzu get for beating Keith Thurman from the media and the fans? Not much. Thurman predictably pulls out a sick note. He can't make it with 2 weeks or so to go. And then they replace Keith with Sebastian Fundora, 6'5" southpaw who fights at 154. Now I thought Tim would win regardless because Sebastian makes too many mistakes. And Tim, he looked on course to win. He was getting his left foot out of the southpaw's periphery and banging that right hand in, which is the kryptonite for the southpaw stance. But then he ran into that elbow, big gash on the top of his forehead, and had to fight the remainder of the fight with this horrible gash that leaked a whole lot of claret throughout the fight. And it obscured his vision. Fundora himself, his nose looked in bad shape. He was leaking badly. But Fundora, behind that southpaw jab and that long telescopic left hand, pulled out a victory. A split decision. Now, I don't know if Team Zoo are full of regret in the aftermath of it all. I would argue it was reckless from Team Zoo. And look, no matter if they had studied Fundora with an 8-week camp or whatever, it was a freak accident that caused the cut. So even if they had a full camp to prepare for Fundora, they couldn't prepare for the way the cut happened. It was as random as anything. But even so, even with that said, with your WBO belt on the line, would you take that fight with less than 2 weeks to go? I'm just not convinced. And I can't blame the PBC. And there's people out there who don't want to give Fundora the credit. Well, Fundora didn't deliberately elbow him in his face. And he had to endure his own injury. No doubt, swallowing blood, struggling to breathe, but he did it. And he's a world champion.
The WBO orders you to fight Crawford next or you'll be stripped. Under any circumstances, will you vacate the WBO belt to fight Errol Spence?
Whatever they give me, whatever give me. Errol Spence is a great opportunity. I think it's a match made in heaven. But Terence Crawford is the best fighter in the world. I would like to fight him.
The PBC are now trying to manipulate Sebastian Fundora, thinking that, yo, we got you a title shot, so you'll do what we say next and fight Errol Spence. Terence Crawford, he went back with Errol Spence on Twitter and told him, you lost, man. I beat you. You got to work your way back. But the Errol Spence fan base are convinced that Errol Spence is going to get this fight when he doesn't deserve the fight. Not over Terence Crawford. Ishe Smith, former TMT fighter, he said that Errol Spence will get the fight. Fundora will not have a say. He'll get stripped of his belt. And that Crawford will end up fighting for the vacant title. Is he right? Now Ishe, from being one of Floyd's most loyal soldiers, is definitely anti-TMT in retirement. If you're an Errol Spence fan and you're having this discussion with your chest out that Errol Spence will get any significant fight before Terence Crawford, bang your head against the wall 20 times, hard.
You must run into the wall and bang your head.
Honourable mention to Boyachuk from the Ukraine versus Brian Mendoza. That was some scrap. Mendoza lost on points. He nearly pulled it back with a big left hook against the run of play when he was on the receiving end. Looked like he sustained some bad damage to the left side of his face. It was swollen pretty bad. Did he break his jaw? Great fight though. But he's taking way too much punches. Good card by the PBC. We're going to start with Ben Whitaker. 26 years of age, Olympic silver medalist, 6'3", from West Bromwich in the Midlands. He's 7-0 with 5 KOs as a pro. He soundly outpointed Leon Willings over 8 rounds, 78-73 on the scorecards. Leon Willings is a Central Area champion who went into the ring, 7 wins, only 1 defeat. Now, he was solidly built and he had decent fundamentals and not the worst defense, and actually found gaps in Ben Whitaker's defense to land uppercuts and his own left hand. You know, he's a young dude, 23, ambitious, who's solidly built. This wasn't the worst test, trust me, and it wasn't the worst result. Ben had no trouble taking his power, as Leon only has 1 stoppage from his 8 wins going into the fight. Ben, he done his showboating, of course, which has a mixed reaction. And Sonny Edwards, being a bit of an instigator, on Twitter said, if I was Ben Whitaker, I'd be fuming at this commentary. As the home fighter, I've never seen a panel so ready to slaughter the fighter they are investing in. Who knows, maybe he'll be a free agent soon. Now, I listened to the commentary. Now, you've got Andy Clarke, who's a pundit / commentator for Sky. He's had a few indifferent words about Ben Whitaker's showboating. But I didn't really focus on them being negative about Ben Whitaker. Maybe I'll have to listen through again. And Ben Whitaker replied to Sonny Edwards with a clock. Time is ticking. So could he be looking elsewhere for promotion? Eddie Hearn the other day said Ben Whitaker is a DAZN fighter, a Matchroom fighter. A very provocative way to say we've got our eye on him. We're headhunting Ben Whitaker. And Ben Shalom wasn't too pleased about that. He had a response. Boxer, they better treat him good. They better treat him good. Now, Ben, he split with Sugar Hill, and I don't believe he's as advanced as he believes he is. Like the left jab, right cross, I guess that's some primary Kronk combination. Well, that became a bit predictable. Where's the left hook? And there's a lot of work to be done. Let's just say that. There's a lot of work to be done. When my pre-fight breakdown says that Alan Babic is a more technically sound heavyweight than his rival, it says a lot. Let's say that. It says quite a lot about his rival. And at 6'7", looking very athletic, you have to wonder why Steve Robinson isn't picking up no fundamental, basic boxing strategy at all. He has coaches. He's in boxing gyms. He was 6-2 going into this. Alan Babic was 11-1. The fight was stopped in the 6th, not because Steve Robinson was particularly hurt by any individual shot, but his inability not to lean in to uppercuts and hooks and at least manufacture the most rudimentary of a hands-up guard, the referee had no choice but stop the fight. BABIC, very crude himself, was able to slip a few more punches and throw better combinations and a better gas tank. Has now got his career back on a winning trajectory after losing to Lucas Rozansky in Poland for the Bridgerweight title last year. VIDDAL Riley, 11-0, 26 years of age, 6'1", based in Tottenham. Big up, big up, big up, big up. He defended his English title against the 17-2 Mikel Lawal. He was 28 years of age, 6'2", from Shepherd's Bush, born in Nigeria. I never understood this match really, but it is what it is. Lawal seems like a nice enough dude, but he is so limited. How the 3 cards are not all scored shutouts, I don't know. Maybe he won a round here or there. Now Viddal has got to ask the hard questions. He won, but this isn't something his promoter can promote to expand the brand and get people to buy into Boxer. Because while his feet were very quick, and while he was very slick and relaxed, making his opponent miss, and while he was able to land his counters here and there and keep the fight from close quarters and do that, it was clever, yeah. It was clever, but there's a next level of expectancy, isn't there? Now, I can't put it all on Viddal, because the times that Viddal did choose to stand his ground and let his hands go with a few, Lawal just kept his hands up and didn't throw anything. Viddal did what he has to do. Isaac Chamberlain, he was present. And they started talking up an Isaac Chamberlain, Viddal Riley fight. And I'm thinking, well, Siobhan Clarke is the mandatory. Why do Boxer keep doing this? And then when they get pulled up about it, oh, Eddie's trying to spoil the party. No, you're not mandated just to make what fights you want when the mandate suggests something else. So Isaac and Viddal went back and forth. Then Siobhan Clarke, Matchroom, was going to have his say. Then some idiot in one of the entourages decided to start throwing hands, and they had to turn the cameras away from the melee that broke out. They need to ban all entourages, all of them. No one has no entourage. You have your trainer, your spit bucket guy, and whoever else is unnecessary to be there. Fucking embarrassing, that's all I can say. Chris KONGO, despite the repeated rabbit punches Florian MARKU threw and the repeated times that he held Chris around his neck when Chris spun him on the ropes and MARKU was in no man's land. But Chris cleaned him up, didn't he? Landing left uppercuts, hooks, controlled the fight behind the jab. For some reason, some of the scorecards, 94, 96, 93, 96, that didn't reflect what I saw. 92, 98 was more in line with what I saw. MARKU to me looks like he could get some weight off and get down to 140. That's what it looks to me. KONGO broke down, celebrating what was a world title for him, I guess. They've had a rivalry for a little while. And Ben Davison has done some good work with Chris KONGO, it has to be said, and he looked good in there. He looked good.
Hello and welcome to The Verdict with me, Carl Frotch, and him, George Groves, the Saint. Right, we're going to get stuck straight into Sunday's fight with Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke. What a battle that was. 2 heavyweights, leaving it all on the line. George, what is your verdict?
Carl, great to see you. My verdict on last night's heavyweight action. So, I think it was a brilliant fight, and if you haven't had a chance to go see it, this one you certainly do not want to miss. Both guys left it all in the ring last night, would have left maybe a little piece of themselves in the ring forevermore.
Yes, a very taxing fight. And this is at British level. They're yet to even go on the European stage. This is at British level. And they're already having fights that take years off the clock. Fabio Wardley alluded to this fight taking years off fighters. That his mum would have hated seeing this. The exact quote, he said, it's not an ideal way to box. It's not an ideal way to fight. It definitely takes years off your life and worries the people around you. So it's not something I'm planning to do too often. But ultimately, there's value in it, knowing that it's there, knowing that you did it over 12 rounds, went through the fire to try and get him out of there. Their big boxes ticked. That's the fighter's perspective. But life is about balance. It's all about balance. There's a certain amount of pain you have to endure to become a boxer. Anthony Joshua spoke about it recently before he fought in Ghana. When you're sparring regular and taking punches, your jaw toughens up because it's becoming accustomed to getting hit there. And then on the other side of the divide is when you're getting hit too much. And now you're not getting toughened up. Your edge is getting blunted. This is Frazer Clarke's 9th fight. And there are better boxers than Fabio Wardley out there. I said beforehand in my breakdown that Wardley stands too upright when he's throwing that jab. And it's way too predictable when he tries to box early on. And he was getting that jab popped in his face in the first two, getting lit up with uppercuts. Although his power punches turned the second round on his head and had Frazer rocking all over the place. He arguably took the round as well. I heard Bass the Kid in the post-interview. He spoke to Frazer and said the knockdown looked like he tripped or slipped. And Frazer said, no, it was definitely a punch. And yeah, it definitely was. There was 2 rights in succession that put him on the canvas. That was in the 5th round. It looked all over for Frazer Clarke at that stage there, because Fabio is a deadly finisher. But the bell went. After Clarke attacked and Fabio backed into the ropes, he made sure that he lent that considerable bulk all over Fabio to drain his battery. That nose that Nathan Gorman opened up and bled quite profusely. Fabio stopped Nathan, but the scar tissue has remained. It opened up early, and Fabio was bleeding horribly from this cut. Frazer lost a point in the 7th for a deliberate low blow. He claims it wasn't deliberate, but it was deliberate. And the referee took a point. A crucial deduction, especially as the fight ended up a draw. Now, it was that taxing a fight. I don't know if either of them returned with the same enthusiasm. I don't know. If Fabio can't get that nose fixed, he's done. Frazer Clarke, he did okay, but he's 31, 32. I don't see any comfortable wins for him at world or European level. I just don't see it. Fabio is raw, but he has that switch, which is unique to him. The way he can just turn it around and get you in trouble. Frazer doesn't do anything to separate him from the other heavyweights. His best weapon was probably the jab, but a lot of heavyweights have got good jabs. He's not particularly fast. He's not particularly explosive. Okay, he didn't get knocked out. He got knocked down once, though, and was hurt a couple of times. So he doesn't have an extraordinary chin. Does he have the time to make the improvements? Does he need a new coach? If we was asking if Anthony Joshua needed a new coach after all he accomplished, we have to ask it with Frazer Clarke. Is Angel Hernandez that guy? Ben Shalom thought he was protecting Frazer by pulling him out of the purse bid last year, but Frazer was insistent that he wanted this fight. And he's had that fight. It's on the big stage. Yeah? British and Commonwealth. At 32, the Olympic bronze medalists, I don't think can go back to learning fights, quote unquote. I think if the big opportunities are there on the world stage, he has to go for them. That's where he is right now. 32, Olympic bronze medalist, is too advanced to be walking around the boxing world as a prospect. Sink or swim now. Call out the big names. You called out Fabio, call out the big names. Try and make the improvements, call out the big names, and see where you can go. Yes, I think he can fight with the likes of Joseph Parker. Yes, I think he can fight with the likes of Zhang. I'm not saying he can win, but yes, I think he can fight with them. Fabio sustained more damage on his face, but Frazer was getting rocked and hurt by punches more than Fabio was. I had Fabio winning this fight. At the final bell, Frazer sat on the bottom rope, exhausted. Fabio was still on his feet, was in obvious discomfort because of what happened to his nose. And Frazer came in around 19 stone. And I did point out the bulk could be a hindrance and a help. And at times, he wasn't getting bullied by Fabio because of the bulk, but he was carrying a lot of timber and he was flagging down the stretch. 19 stone, It's a lot of weight. A draw wasn't the worst result, but Fabio won this fight for me. And this is what happens when you go this free agent route. You know, he didn't have the MATCHROOM machine behind him in a purse bid, so he would have had a shot at this being a MATCHROOM card, and he was at the mercy of the home fighter. Not a robbery, but he was at the mercy of the home fighter. Excellent British title fight, though. They won't be running it again for a little while. Anyone expecting the rematch to happen this year? It won't be. Both men need a rest, recovery, recuperation, and they need to set a strategy on what they're going to do to climb up the rankings, to set up their profiles, take fights that can make them look good, but still give them credibility. The rematch will not be next, although the public will demand it.